Alright, what's happening everybody? This is Dave with ADU+Aquascaping, and today we're going to be talking about how you can limit algae growth and algae explosions in your newly set up aquarium or newly set up aquascape. And this is going to be pertaining to some maintenance methods that you can use, as well as lighting. We aren't going to be talking about the cleanup crews or anything like that. So first and foremost, what you can do, of course, to limit algae growth is make light your limiting factor. You don't want to have too much light because that will induce algae. It's one of the easiest things that you can control as a hobbyist to limit the algae growth. With my new setup, I actually was running the lights with too much intensity. You know, I didn't change the photoperiod. I kept the photoperiod the same, but I just turned down the intensity because these lights have a potentiometer. So if you don't have a fixture that happens to have a potentiometer, you can either raise the lights up, physically higher above the aquarium, but that may cause plants down low to not get adequate enough amounts of light. They won't get adequate amounts of lighting, so you may have to increase your CO2 if you're using CO2 if you decide to raise your lights up. Another thing you can do, of course, is decrease the photoperiod. Now, we've all heard this before. It's nothing new, but it's something that I just want to review because I even forgot it myself. I was really busy. Of course, I'm busy right now with school, and I had the lighting intensity too high, and I got a bunch of algae. Now, the other reason why this is the case is because a lot of the plants are in immersed form. They're not submersed form. The density of the plants is low. They're also going to be transitioning from that immersed form to submersed form, so they're just not going to be utilizing all the radiation that you're giving them. When we set up a new scape or aquarium, usually, just as a general rule, you usually run your lights for about 5 to 6 hours, just depending. I've had some low-tech tanks where I run the lights at 9 hours from the very beginning till the end because the lighting was always low. So if you do have medium to high light, you want to start out with running the lights for only about 5 to 6 hours and then slowly increase your lighting over time as the plant density goes up. But if you are running low light, a lot of the times you can start out running the tank between 8 to 10 hours. So basically my Bucephalandra and a bunch of the other plants got a bunch of algae on them. So in this case, I didn't limit the algae growth, and what you have to do if you do end up getting algae when you first set up your aquarium, you need to go through and you need to remove all your algae. Don't be scared to remove it. I know I've said this 100 times, but if you're Bucephalandra or Anubias or any other slow-growing plants, even stem plants, if a bunch of leaves have algae on them, just get rid of all of them. Even if you chop it all the way down to the base, down to the stem, or if you chop it all the way down to the rhizome. I have some Bucephalandras that I chopped all the way down to the rhizome, but now they're growing back more healthily. Same thing goes for liverworts or mosses. If you have a lot of hair algae in your moss, you may have to rip up huge sections and you may be scared. And I always say this, I keep repeating this because even I'm apprehensive at times. Like, do I really want to rip up this giant section of moss? But in the end, I do it anyway. Usually if you rip up a big section of moss and there'll be little residual amounts of moss on the driftwood or on the rock, they'll grow back, and they always grow back, and much more healthily, and just they're way more healthy, better condition. So make light the limiting factor. Remove any algae off the leaves that you can see, all of it. Even if you turn the plant into a stump, it's going to come back. And on top of that, because you are removing the algae and you are doing maintenance, and let's say you do have some algae, let's say it's even an algae explosion. Of course, after you net up all the algae and you physically remove all the algae, you're going to want to do more frequent water changes. You may even want to do bi-weekly water changes. And what this is doing is it's physically reducing the spores that are in the water column so they can't start attaching to a different part of the tank and propagating from there. So you're just limiting their ability, the algae spores, to continue to grow in your aquarium. So basically, make light your limiting factor. Either raise the lights, reduce the photoperiod, remove all algae that you see, physically remove it. Guys, there's no secret. This hobby does take work. It does take maintenance. You need to stay consistent with your maintenance. To have an algae-free tank does take work. Now, that being said, if you do start off on the right foot, you can have a tank that has less algae. And you can achieve that by doing more frequent water changes at the beginning, and of course reducing your photoperiod, or basically starting out with a low photoperiod. Once the plants take off, then you can increase your light intensity or your photoperiod, or both. Now, I know I've talked about this in different videos. It relates to different videos, such as the video about achieving good water quality that talks about the biochemical oxygen demand. My video, how to beat back algae like a boss. I basically show you how to do it. But just because of what went on with this aquarium, I wanted to share with you guys what's happening right now. The aquarium's been set up for about a month. This is what happened. So I dialed the lighting way back. I've only got the halos at about 35% of full power, which isn't very much at all. The plants are finally starting to get more dense. I removed tons and tons of leaves, tons and tons of algae off of all the moss and everything like that. The plants are starting to bounce back. Once the plants get more dense, I'm going to slowly increase the lighting intensity. Because right now my Rotala Yaoye is just green in coloration, but the Yaoye can be a very, very bright pink, a bright reddish orange. It can get really good anthocyan and carotenoid pigment coloration on the plant when you have it in more intense lighting conditions. So that's basically it, guys. I hope everything's going well with your tanks, and thanks for watching. Until next time, keep your sleeves wet. Peace out.